Hey, Bills Mafia. We know there's only one topic every day. All Bills, all the time. And now Matt Bove and Sal Capaccio are going really deep, talking Bills all year long, because it's always game day in Buffalo.
All right, let's go in the Wayback Machine and rewind this show to May. And the schedule comes out. And Matt and I are basically looking at it going, ooh, LA in December, Miami in January. We're really excited about that. We still are, right? I mean, get to 2 of the next 3 weeks, warm weather, going out west, going out to LA. This week, the Bills have a big game against the Chargers, but it is a Saturday game. So as we welcome you to always game day in Buffalo, there's a lot to get to early in the week, including an injury report and a normal, like I'd say, call it a media day down at One Bills Drive. And Matt, welcome in. And tradition every year, right around this time of year, Buffalo Bills PR makes a donation to a good cause in someone's name. And I know they did something really special for you and your family this year.
Yeah, they did. I'm going to try not to get emotional because it's hard not to. But this year, the Bills, as a little holiday present for the people who cover the team, made a donation to Feed More Western New York in honor of my father, who passed away in July. And when my father passed away, when we were writing the obituary, you throw in the line there, like in lieu of flowers, donations can be made to. And we thought about something that was really impactful for our family and a cause that we really cared about. And that was Feed More. As my mom, my sister, and I had that conversation of what would we know he would be proud of to try and help people with. And that was helping people who might be struggling or people who might not know where their next meal's coming from to get a little bit of help, especially during a time like this, especially during the holidays. So for the Bills to make that donation in honor of him is just remarkable. When I found out, I cried. I called my mom. She cried, not only because of all the people that it's going to help, and that's ultimately what's most important, but also because of what this organization meant to him. He was a lifelong Bills fan. He loved the team so much. So to see them honor him and try and help people in the community is just really, really special. And I'll also say the Sabres also made a donation prior to the season. I did not know about it prior to the season, but Feed More actually sent our family a thank you note because there were so many people who donated and the Sabres were listed on there. And there were a lot of people who did too. And if you did, even if you didn't, we've appreciated all of the support because it has been such an incredibly difficult year for our family. But when I found that out on Tuesday, I just broke down. It's just so raw and so it's still so fresh and real. And I can't believe we're talking about him in the past tense, and it doesn't make sense that we're getting ready for a holiday without him. But to know that his legacy is helping others is the thing that I can really latch onto. So shout out to Bills PR for just really something that means so much to our family.
Yeah, good on them. And great on your family to be involved and care about a cause that helps out the community so much. And, your dad's legacy will always live on. And I know he's going to be watching this game from up high and looking down at SoFi Stadium and hoping his Buffalo Bills get a very big win against the LA Chargers. They need it. But great job by Bills PR. Every year they make a donation and something it's really worthwhile, great cause. And for them to do that for you and your family is really awesome. So congratulations to your family for being, honored like that, I guess, is if that's the right word to use. I don't know. But in the meantime, it's a great thought. And thanks to Bills PR. Really cool.
I don't know if what I said made sense. Honestly, my mind is still a little bit jumbled. It's super emotional and just super moving and powerful. And the one thing I'll say is, regardless of what happens on the field, regardless of what happens on the ice, in the case of the Sabres, those organizations are filled with a lot of really good, caring people. And I think when you have people like that at every level of your organization, you'll ultimately end up having success. And I really do ultimately believe that. I think when you fill your organization, you fill your team with people who are not just talented, but also high character and compassionate and understand that relationships matter, I think that goes a long way. So just shout out to both of those, gestures that were made by the Bills and Sabres and everybody who has supported us during this time.
You got it. Right on. Well said. The Bills were back on the practice field on Tuesday this week because they have a Saturday game.
Yep.
And there's an injury report that comes with Tuesday games when there's a Saturday game. Basically, excuse me, sorry. When you play on Wednesday, the first injury report, when you play on Sunday, the first injury report comes out on Wednesday. Since it's a Saturday, it's backed up a day. So Tuesday, the first injury report. Now, it is an estimated injury report. It's an estimation based on if they had a full practice. They had a walkthrough.
Yeah.
That said, it's a very lengthy injury report. I also don't want anybody to get too freaked out about that because only one player on the entire injury report is actually out for an injury reason. That is Jordan Phillips. Von Miller missed practice due to a funeral in his family, so he's been excused and he's expected back in town Tuesday night into Wednesday. Jordan Phillips, however, the only one. We can get to the rest of them, but let's talk about his impact. Sean McDermott said he had wrist surgery right after the game on Sunday. Got hurt Sunday, late game, had wrist surgery. He's going to be out a little while. Week to week is what he termed him. But you get Daquan Jones' window opening. McDermott said on Tuesday, Matt, he doesn't expect him to play, but what's the sum of all this for you?
If you can't beat the Chargers and Patriots without Jordan Phillips, then you have a bigger issue at stake and you ultimately aren't as good as we thought you were. But I think they can beat them without Jordan Phillips. And if that also bridges the gap to Daquan Jones getting back, then I think they become that much more dynamic defensively. I think Jordan Phillips has played well and made splash plays. And that's a position that's pretty bare now, but I think they will be able to figure it out with a lot of usage of, Tim Settle. And obviously we're going to see more Poona Ford now than we have in really the entire season. But Ed Oliver is your guy at defensive tackle who's going to eat. And I know they play different positions sometimes, and I know that they rotate all through that defensive line. But I think the big injury note from the entire day was that Daquan Jones' window is opening up. And the second biggest part of it is that Micah Hyde and AJ Epinesa were listed as limited on Tuesday, which is a really good sign. And, Sal, if you're listening to this podcast, you don't see this, but on the video portion of it, it looks like the heavens are opening up to Sal as the sun shines into his window.
I'm trying. I have a window near where I'm doing this. So if I do this, I have like this book here I can put, and I can kind of mitigate that a little bit because we're doing it at a different time than normal. So I apologize to everyone. I will try to keep it here so you can see my shiny bald head in the meantime. If you're listening, you have no idea what we're talking about, but there you go. There's a little bit better. And I apologize for the glare. So go ahead,
your
Matt.
Your arm's gonna get tired if you have to hold that thing
something.
there.
You know what? I could probably find something to put there. Let's talk about that, though. AJ Epinesa and Micah Hyde for sure.
So basically, Taylor Rapp did a commendable job replacing Micah Hyde, but I think to have the healthy rotation that they like to have completely on their defense, they usually don't rotate their safeties, obviously, but it just gives them more options. And even though Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are not the caliber of player that they once were, they are still a better team when they have Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer as a tandem out on the field. So to have Micah Hyde back, obviously that's a big one. And then as far as AJ Epinesa is concerned, listen, you can make the argument that AJ Epinesa is the third most important edge rusher on this team. For me, it's Leonard Floyd, Greg Rousseau, and then it gets down to AJ Epinesa because Von Miller just has not contributed yet to the level that we have expected him to. So AJ Epinesa is one of those guys that, like, if you can get him back, especially if you can get him back for a potential run, if you're trying to go to a playoff, or if you're trying to make the playoffs, or if you're trying to get in the playoffs, or once you're ultimately in the playoffs, trying to, win a Super Bowl, those are the kind of guys you need. And there is a step down from, to me, AJ Epinesa to Shaq Lawson. They do things differently. Like Shaq Lawson would be their heavy personnel on a play where you're expecting a run. You put him in there because you know that him and Greg Rousseau are pretty sure in the run game. But in a passing situation, besides Floyd and Rousseau, I think my next man up would be AJ Epinesa.
All right, I'm going to do something I've never done on the show. I'm going to move this camera. You're going to see a little bit more of my, because there you go. How's that?
It's so beautiful.
You could do it that way. Now, you got my
just do it that way.
There, though, right? You got
there you go.
So I'm giving you a little glimpse inside Studio Capaccio here, everybody. All right,
Studio Capaccio, yeah.
Studio
Capaccio. Is the wall angled?
Hold on.
Is that like?
Then I whack my thing there. I'm sorry. What'd you say? You like what?
I think it says, is your wall angled? Is that like a triangular?
Yes.
Oh,
I have
very nice.
Well, Studio Capaccio is actually located on the third floor of Casa Capaccio. And the third floor is an attic, basically. So it's, tilted.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So there we go. So get a little bit better shot for you there. But anyway, I don't think I got anything.
Nice printer, though.
Yeah.
Might be time to upgrade the printer. With one of those Bluetooth ones.
A scanner? I do. It
Okay.
is Bluetooth. It's all
Oh, it is.
wireless.
Okay. All right. It's
On the
fancy.
Bluetooth. It's all wireless, but it's got a scanner and everything. I don't know. I don't really need. What do
Printers
you
these
think?
days, printers these days are wild, and you can get a printer
How
cheap.
about
You get a
3D
printer for like
printers these
30.
days are wild.
You get a printer for like 35, $40 these days. That'll do like anything for you.
So you're right about Hyde and Epinesa and what they mean, and I think it's really important to know that Micah Hyde's, because of his long term situation, and for him
Yeah.
to be limited is really encouraging. But there's one more player that we heard about that the Bills aren't going to get back. It looks like this year. All right, Matt. So Sean McDermott he was asked about Matt Milano on Tuesday, and he said it just doesn't look like he's going to come back this year. And this isn't a total surprise, but there was some hope. People were holding out. And he was asked about it partly because Matt was there on Sunday. He was at the game against the Cowboys. First I've seen him on the field. I think it's the first he's been on the field. He was not walking with any aids, like as far as crutches or anything like that, boots. But he's not going to be able to get back. It looks like the rehab and the recovery is just a little bit too long. And that's a shame. You'd love to see that happen. And obviously, he'd be a really big, impactful addition to the Buffalo Bills defense as they go on. Now, that said,
do we know that for sure, though? Because he kind of left some wiggle room there. Like,
he left some wiggle room for maybe in the postseason, but he said all of the information he's received now has indicated that it's most likely Milano will not be back at all this year.
Yeah, but
what wiggle room do you think he left?
The fact that he said from the information that I have, if you knew he wasn't going to play, you would just say, listen, guys, he's not going to be able to play this year. Or you'd say, listen, guys, he's not going to be able to play this season. But I mean, he was asked multiple questions on it because I think it was fairly vague. Now, the fact that I'm not expecting Matt Milano to play, but let's just talk in like dream scenarios for the Bills. What if this team goes to an AFC championship? What if this team goes to a Super Bowl? I think the conversation changes because you know what I mean? Like right now, if in your head, you're like, yeah, he's not going to play this year. But when I was talking about that, I meant the regular season because I didn't know for sure what our outlook was. It's different than Micah Hyde because Micah Hyde, there really weren't these questions being asked about him because I think they were a little bit more firm on their initial prognosis of his injury. And then it just kind of came out of the blue that it was like, oh, Micah Hyde might come back. And then obviously he would have been available for the AFC championship. They lose the game before. So yeah, for me, it's just, I'm not expecting Matt Milano to play, but I also think there was a little bit of a kind of escape there if they ultimately end up having him come back.
I don't disagree. He probably did that. Here's my guess. I don't know this. This is my guess, just knowing the way they operate and how Sean talks. My guess is he's probably got information that, Matt probably won't be available until late February, early March. So instead of giving a timeline, he says, the information I got probably not going to be available to return. But you're right. By him saying that, maybe he's leaving the window open that maybe there's something quicker that happens if they go that deep into the playoffs, right? So he's at least leaving himself an out, but he's also telling you don't expect it. It's most likely not going to happen. So I don't disagree with the way you interpret that. I would say, though, I've been talking all week on WGR on the radio side about the job the assistant position coaches have done, the position coaches, the assistants. And I would tell you that Bobby Babich at linebackers coach, and I've said this on the radio a lot this week, so I want to bring it here. I think he's just done a phenomenal job. Think about Terrell Bernard and the season he's having as the starting middle linebacker after losing Tremaine Edmonds. I would argue Terrell Bernard's been better this year than any one season Tremaine had. Maybe not last year. Tremaine was really good last year. But Terrell Bernard is in his first year starting as good as any season really Tremaine Edmonds has ever had. And Matt, I can make an argument that Tyrell Dodson is maybe the most improved player on this roster from the time that he had to start playing until now, especially in pass coverage where he was really a liability, and that hasn't been the case. And I just want to throw it out there that Bobby Babich has done a great job. You think about this guy, he coached safeties.
I know, it's crazy.
They had 2 All-Pros, Hyde and Poyer. That was it when he was coaching them, like the only 2 that made it one year. They had a really good team. He goes to linebackers after his dad retires. And right away, Matt Milano becomes an All-Pro his first year there. Tremaine Edmonds has his best season, and now look what he's doing. But I just think it speaks volumes to the job the assistants have done.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that going into the season, probably linebackers was the biggest concern for a lot of people because, and rightfully so. I mean, you were going from Tremaine Edmonds, a guy who was a Pro Bowler, a guy who got paid a ton of money, having his best season, to virtually unknown. I mean, we were talking in the summer about it potentially being like Balin Spector's job or AJ Klein's job.
Right.
And look at what has happened. Terrell Bernard stepped into that role once he got healthy. And for me now, linebacker is going to be a position of strength for the next several seasons as you have Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard playing next to each other. When they did for those first 5 weeks of the season, it was scary how good they looked as a unit. And then Tyrell Dodson's another one of those guys who Tyrell Dodson came in and he did not just like struggle. He was not very good. But as the season has gone on, he has went from not very good to, oh, wow, this guy can play. Like, I wonder if this guy ends up latching on somewhere or if he just stays around as like your next man up when ultimately they do get healthy. But yeah, I think both of them, Terrell Bernard has shattered expectations and Tyrell Dodson has been a very pleasant surprise.
I would also tell you that a lot of this has happened since the addition of Rasul Douglas, right? I think Rasul Douglas has had a ripple effect for what he's been able to do on one side of the field and really help take away some teams' best options. Not that he travels all the time, but it just seems like he's right there helping out and doing a great job. And that's, I think, made everybody better. I think it's made the pass rush a little better. It's made the linebackers better. It's made Christian Benford better. I think Christian Benford's playing the best football of his career right now as well.
Yeah, I think so too. I actually shout out to Carl Jones from ROC in Rochester. We were chatting before the game a little bit, but he broke down a play on the Christian Benford interception and he showed the two different versions of the play and how in the first quarter or second quarter, I forgot what it was, they had CeeDee Lamb in the wide receiver 3 position. Like he was basically lining up in the slot and he was the target on the play and he led to a big gain and a first down. And Benford recognized that they tried to do that later in the game and basically broke off of his coverage and found a space and Dak threw the ball right to him for like the easiest interception ever. So Christian Benford, talented player, but also smart player who has been another one of those guys that it's like, you would have always wanted Kyer Elam to just be a knockout home run pick, right? Like that's a cost-controlled contract. It is a big-time asset that you used on him. But if Christian Bedford ultimately ends up becoming the legitimate cornerback 2 on this team, then I think that probably makes the whiff on Elam, or what now seems like a whiff on Elam, a lot easier of a pill to swallow. It makes you wonder also, too, what is the future of Tre'Davious White? Because I do not know the answer to that. And that's obviously a conversation to be had more for the offseason. But Rasul Douglas is under contract for next season. He might get an extension the way he has played because he has looked so good. And I don't know how you take Christian Benford off of the field. And are you really keeping Tre'Davious White around if he's going to have another 12-month rehab like he did the last time he had the injury to come back and miss the first month or month and a half of the season next year? I don't know. I guess that all depends on Tre'Davious White because that guy looked so good to start the season. But when he came back from the injury last time around, it took him the rest of the year to once again start. I know, but I'm just saying, like, talking about season-ending injuries here. Like,
but a knee and an ACL and an Achilles are two totally different injuries.
Yeah, but they're both like, well, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is kind of throwing a wrench in all of this, but they're both usually right around a year. That's the normal expectation.
Yeah, look, I've heard this question before, and I get why people ask it. I understand. I don't think there's much there. I don't think you're moving on from Tre'Davious White. I think he's still, guy's not even 30 years old yet. Rasul Douglas is actually over the age of 30 right now. Tre'Davious White is 28 years old, and he works really hard. I think he's still going to be fine. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having high-level players that can be backups. You don't have to just move on from somebody because somebody else can be a quality starter, right? I think we jump to that too quickly. We move a position, move on from him. There's also a lot of financial considerations. You move on from Tre'Davious White, that contract, there's money you got to eat. So I think Tre'Davious White is here. I think he's probably the starter. I don't know what you do with Christian, but you figure it out. You just figure it out. You have good players, and not everybody can play.
I mean, his dead cap drops from $26 million this year to $10 million next year.
That's still a lot of money. And I'd rather have him on the team than do that.
I guess it depends what you think of everybody else. You're not extending Rasul Douglas then, right?
I don't know. Like I said, I just think we get in this space where you can only have one or the other, or why? It's okay to have good players or backups.
Because they don't have the luxury or the wiggle room to have a lot of these luxuries that we are used to them having. Like, you want to keep Leonard Floyd? you're going to have to let go of somebody. You want to keep Daquan Jones? Like, you want to sign him again? You're going to have to do something. You want to bring back Gabe Davis, Micah Hyde? Like, they have a lot of big decisions to make. So I don't know. They're going to move on from somebody that will surprise people. They're going to have to, because they just they cannot keep with every restructure and void year and every little workaround that they could possibly do. It'll still not be enough.
I agree, but I would use that same sentiment the other way and say they don't have a luxury of having a $10 million cap hit on Tre'Davious White, that he's not here.
Yeah, it's probably right. It's probably
I mean,
right.
So to me, I mean, all this stuff has to be figured out months down the road. I think the bottom line is we both agree they have some pretty good players in that secondary right now, right? And Rasul Douglas is a really, big, important part of that. But I'm glad you mentioned this group, because we should say that Kyrie Elam has like a week left before they have to make a decision on him. And Justin Shorter has 2 weeks left before they have to make a decision on him, or a little bit more than that, whatever it is, but it's coming up. And their window is still open for practicing. But if they don't come back, either one of them, they're done for the rest of the year. And I wonder what that looks like, Matt. I don't know. Are they going to activate Kyrie Elam at some point? Because you got to do it soon. If that's the case, I believe I'm right on my math here. They have until the middle of next week after Christmas to make that decision on Kyrie Elam, or else he's done for the rest of the year.
Is there an easy corresponding move that you could make to get him back onto the roster? Because I can't immediately.
I think there might be one, and that might be Jordan Phillips on IR.
Okay, yeah, that's probably right. If the Jordan Phillips one turns into something that probably makes sense. Because the last time we had this conversation, we were like, well, what could you do? Well, you could try and get Ty Johnson to your practice squad. I don't know if Ty Johnson's he's been effective. Yeah. I know you have said you still think that he could probably get to the practice squad, but I don't know if I'm willing to risk that. I think Ty Johnson has become like legitimately their second best running back option and should out-snap and outplay Latavius Murray.
Especially because you look around, look what happened with Mitchell, the running back for Baltimore. Maybe Baltimore's looking for somebody, right? You release a guy like Johnson, maybe that's the case. But then what happens with Leonard Fournette? We get this question every week. I get it every week. Yeah. I'll ask you, what do you think happens with Leonard Fournette? Does he get a shot? When does that happen, if it does happen?
I think that he should get a shot, and I think that it should be in place of Latavius Murray. I think that Latavius Murray started the year and impressed, but has since I don't even want to say has cooled off. He really hasn't been a huge difference maker in this team. They trust him in pass protection, which is important, obviously, but I think Leonard Fournette brings you a little bit more. And if you're looking for somebody who can be like your short yardage, almost Damian Harris type replacement, I think the idea of 3 guys as, Fournette and then Johnson and then Cook, I mean, you can just call up Fournette anyway. Like, you don't have to get rid of Latavius Murray and just have 4 guys active. So I think that he'll play at some capacity. Maybe it happens even this week. I don't know. I don't think, though, that would be something that they try and roll out into, the last, like a must-win game, right? Well, they're all must-win at this point. But I would think that it's something that you want to try and figure out now as opposed to later.
And you also have the option, by the way, they've done this before. You could elevate him, and then he actually is inactive, but he would still get a game check. That's a reward for him. He doesn't have to play in the game. You could elevate him and then just make him inactive. He gets a game check, an actual, game check for being on the active roster instead of the practice squad. And that would be like a reward for, hey, we know you've been trying here. We just don't have a spot, but we're gonna elevate you. We're gonna pay you. You're just gonna stay inactive for the game. It would take care of one of the elevations. You get 3 of them. But look, after this week and starting this week, there's only 3 left. So really, the rest of the year, they could elevate them every week, and including playoffs. An important note for everybody, operation purposes. Once you get to the playoffs, Matt, you could still only elevate 2 players, but there's no more unlimited elevate. And there's unlimited elevations. So like Josh Norman suddenly becomes like he has elevations left for the rest of the year once the playoffs come. Or Andy Isabella. It doesn't matter how many times you elevated somebody. You could do Leonard Fournette now for the rest of the season, all through the Super Bowl if they were to make it, because he's got 3 left and then unlimited in the playoffs.
Weren't they doing that last year with Cole Beasley and John Brown?
Yes. Yeah, so I think they had like 4 weeks left. They had to play with one of them.
They had to one of them could play and one of them couldn't, and they kind of alternated back and forth, and then they were both in the playoffs. So I think that Fournette's eventually going to get on the field. I think it could even happen this week. I think that the way your running game looked against the Cowboys on Sunday, the Chargers they have to do a better job against the run than the Cowboys did because they didn't stop the run at all. But I would think the Bills are trying to, once again, kind of establish the line of scrimmage and play a controlled, smart game against an opponent that they are, very heavily favored against, an opponent that just got punched in the mouth pretty bad. But that being said, you expect that they play with a lot of extra juice and motivation given the coaching change, the general manager change, what they just gave up against the Raiders. Like, they'll play better than that.
I agree with that. The Bills should beat Easton Stick, assuming he's the quarterback. I mean, they did sign Will Greer, but the Bills should beat Easton Stick. And if they don't beat Easton Stick, I'll say what you said before. If they can't win without, having Jordan Phillips on the field. I mean, if you don't beat Easton Stick, you're not playing playoff quality football anyway. And they put themselves in a position where they don't have any wiggle room and have to win games like this.
Yeah, they also, for what it's worth, like offensively, listen to these last 4 games that they've played. They scored 10 points against the
Chargers?
Ravens.
Yeah.
The Chargers. 10 points against the Ravens. 6 points against the Patriots. 7 points against the Chargers. And 21 points against the Raiders.
Who was the set you said against the Chargers?
Oh, sorry. They scored 10 against the Ravens, 6 against the Patriots, 7 against the Broncos. My bad.
There you go.
And they scored 21 against the Raiders. They lost that game 21-63. Yep. And we saw what the Bills did to the Raiders when they played them earlier in the season.
And most of that was garbage time anyway when they were already.
That's
the
what
Raiders
I mean.
Were like, yeah, we don't care.
It makes you wonder. It's a little bit too early in the week, and because we're recording this pretty early in the day, and they're still out on the West Coast. Have we heard anything about Keenan Allen as of late?
No, or Joey Bosa, who's eligible to go off IR this week.
Keenan Allen not practicing today. That's as of 11 minutes ago.
Thank you. Well, that's it. That's good. And right there, breaking news here on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo podcast. All right, you mentioned it. The rest of the league. Let's take a look around the NFL schedule and what we have to watch out for and what Bills fans need to root for this weekend. Sal Capaccio, Matt Bove, It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Mike Robier producing. We appreciate that. Happy holidays to everyone. It is the holiday weekend. It's Christmas. And the Bills, I'm glad, Matt, they don't play on Christmas Eve like everybody else seems to, except for like 4 other teams. They're not playing on Christmas Day like some games are.
Yeah.
So the LA trip happens. Bills, I'll be on the charter flying back. I'll get here very early Christmas Eve morning and then basically have all day to kick my feet up, watch some football, not worry about it. Whereas opposed to if this was a Christmas Eve game, not getting back till Christmas morning, which would really stink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not the case at all here.
Really quick, Dean Leonard, their corner, also not practicing. So I saw that also when I was just kind of looking through their reports of who's practicing, who's not. So Dean Leonard, cornerback, and Keenan Allen, wide receiver. Obviously, Keenan Allen's the big one. Already without Mike Williams, he's on IR. And then Quentin Johnson, their first-round pick from this year, has, really underwhelmed. I say that, and you knock on wood, because he could, have one of those games where it's like, why'd you say that, Matt? But sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. I just saw that as I was kind of looking through their injury reports and their beat reporters and stuff.
Okay, well, let's take a look at this week's schedule. Hold on, let me figure this out here and bring this up so I don't get it wrong. Thursday night game doesn't matter for the Bills, Saints and Rams, but it does matter big time in the NFC, both tied at 7-7. Bengals at Steelers play right before the Bills and the Chargers, and that's a monstrous game in the AFC for both those teams, and it really impacts the Bills. Bills fans, I know this sounds gross. You got to root for the Steelers on Saturday night. You got to root for the Steelers on Saturday evening. But I would tell you, even though I think the Bengals are a better team, even with Jake Browning, they're without Jamar Chase, and the Steelers' backs are against the wall at home with a Mike Tomlin coach defense. I think the Steelers have a shot here. Really do.
See, I don't. I think they're terrible.
Wow.
Yeah,
they're not good. I don't disagree with you. But I don't think the Bengals are world beaters either, and they're without Jamar Chase.
I think the Bengals, even without Jamar Chase, are still significantly better than the Steelers.
Even with Jake Browning at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, T. Higgins looked really, really good in those final minutes of the game against the Vikings. And the Vikings had a stingy defense, and they were still able to move the ball on them late. So I just think that the weapons that they have offensively, even without Jamar Chase, they use all of those tight ends. Joe Mixon is having another nice season. T. Higgins is good. They still have Tyler Boyd. I mean, they have, without Jamar Chase, still a solid 1-2 punch at wide receiver that's probably better than some other teams with T. Higgins and with Tyler Boyd. So, yeah, I just still think the Steelers, like in Mason Rudolph, like what are you gonna
point spread? You know the point spread in that game?
I don't know the point spread in that game. Is it in Pittsburgh or is it in?
Yes, it's in Pittsburgh.
Cincy. My guess is the Bengals are a 2.5 point favorite.
Very close, very good. 2 to 2.5, 1.5 in a couple books, but I think it just goes to show you it's a closer game
Mm-hmm.
than what you might think. Like, I agree with you. The Bengals are better. I'm just saying I think this is a situation where I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers rise up and they play a little bit better, or at least the Bengals maybe have a little bit of a letdown after last week's game and then without Jamar Chase. But you get to a couple go ahead.
Ask me all the betting
Okay.
lines because I have no idea. I haven't looked at
Okay.
any of it yet. So this will be
Yep.
a fun game of like the games that matter for the Bills. I'll tell you what I think the line is.
Okay,
see how
Colts and
close I can get.
Falcons. Falcons are making a quarterback change. By the way, did you see the news on the Colts? Isaiah McKenzie suspended along with another player for conduct detrimental to the team. Yes.
Shut up. No way.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, I didn't see that.
Isaiah McKenzie and another player whose name escapes me. It's out there. You can find it. Suspended by the team for conduct detrimental to the team.
What the heck?
So
Tony Brown and wide receiver, 3 games.
3 games.
Conduct
Rest of the
detrimental to
regular
team.
season. Both teams here fighting. The Falcons, both of them actually fighting for their division, fighting for their playoff lives, everything. It's all live for them. Colts at Falcons. Taylor Heineke going to start for the Atlanta Falcons. They had a big letdown last week as they lost to the Carolina Panthers. The Colts, they keep doing it, man. They keep winning. They keep finding ways to win these games, and now they go to Atlanta. What do you think the line is in this game?
I would say Colts 3.5.
The line in this game is Falcons -1.
I think the Falcons are going to win this game.
Okay.
I was going to say, I think Taylor Heineke is a massive step up for Desmond, because Taylor Heineke plays like he doesn't give a shit, right? He's going to throw it all over the place. So he's going to be like, all right, I'm going to take these shots. And I think that that's what they need. So
yeah,
I like the Falcons there.
I like you're bringing a little bit edge and cursing a little bit on the radio here and
yeah,
podcast.
Not safe for work here.
I got you. Then I'm going to skip over the ones that don't matter. Browns, Texans. Browns are in the driver's seat here in the wild card race, 9-5. They go to the Texans. We'll see about CJ Stroud's availability. I don't know if I've seen anything yet about, what they expect from him this week. Texans, man, the Titans let him off the hook, and Case Keenum brings him back. Then again, the Bears let the Browns off the hook. The Bears had the Browns. The Titans had the Texans. They both wind up winning. Now they play each other. Browns at Texans. I would say if you're a Bills fan, you root for the Browns in this one. They're going to probably get that their first wild card. Give it to them. There's still 2 spots left. Knock the Texans out as much as you can. It's not the worst thing if the Texans beat the Browns and the Bills win and everybody's tied here at 9-6. But I think maybe if you can just jump the Texans and then worry about the Browns later, that might be beneficial. You tell me.
I'm going to shout out to Matt Perino here because he said, what's a perfect week look like? And a lot of people commented specifically on this game. And he said that Joe Buscaglia and Leighton Getzenberg explained to him that the Browns still play the Colts and the Bengals, and the 3 of them would essentially eliminate each other if the Browns lose to Houston. But I tend to agree with you from a logic standpoint of almost conceding the 1 spot because I think the Colts are a bigger threat. And also, I think that gives you a little bit more wiggle room. Like, that makes sense if the Bills win out. But I think for the Bills, the hope is that you don't have to win out. You could go to 10-7 and still get in. Unfortunately, their tiebreaker situation is horrendous. So now it's starting to look more and more, even though mathematically it's about a 50-50 shot that they get in if they're 10-7. But I think that, you might really have to beat Miami. It really might come down to the last game of the year.
What do you think the line is in this game? Browns and Texans.
Where is it?
In Houston.
Oh, that's a tough one because it all depends on CJ Stroud. If CJ Stroud,
let's assume he's playing. He missed 1 week with a concussion.
I would say if CJ Stroud's playing, they're probably like 2.5-point favorites.
They are. That's exactly right. You're cheating, aren't you? You're looking at something.
I swear.
No, they are. I actually was surprised. I thought the Browns still might be favored because of the defense, because they're still a little bit banged up, CJ Stroud. But it looks like, to me, the line screams that the line is expecting, Vegas is expecting CJ Stroud to play, right? When it's -2.5.
Yeah.
I think that's the case.
Yeah, I think so. I also did see early in the week, I believe it was on Monday, that he had not cleared concussion protocol, but realistically, he probably doesn't have to until Friday to play?
Saturday at 4. No. Game time. Just the inactive list. You can clear concussion protocol 90 minutes before the game be activated.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a different deal than a roster transaction. A roster transaction has to be made for a Sunday game by Saturday at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
He's on the roster. As long as he's cleared on Sunday morning, he can play and just be on the active list. So that's how that would work. Okay. Jags at Buccaneers, no brainer here.
Yeah.
You want the Buccaneers to win, right? But let me just throw a little fly in the ointment for you. Okay, Matthew?
Okay.
The Jaguars beat the Bills head to head.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be tied with them for a wild card spot. It's probably
Sure.
preferable that you want them to win their division. So then you could be tied with Indy and Houston instead, and then see where it goes, because their conference records aren't that great. And, you take your chances. You got to beat out Jacksonville. So maybe it's even better if Jacksonville beats Tampa to take the division. However, that said, I'll still say it's an AFC against NFC game. Let the NFC team win, because it still gives you more options at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's tricky because the Jags schedule is a cupcake for the rest of the year. They play the Titans, the Panthers, and the Bucks, the Panthers, and the Titans.
Agreed.
So I would imagine that they probably run the table. And when you look at like Indianapolis, for example, they still have to play Houston. So those teams will conceivably, somebody will prop themselves up and somebody will take themselves out of it. I think you still, like you said, root for the NFC team every single time and just hope that the Bills run the table here. That's what everybody should hope anyway.
Okay.
And my guess for that game.
Are you that confident the Jags are going to beat the Bucks? I'm not. I don't think so. Trevor Lawrence is in concussion protocol, first of all.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is my guess for that game, for the line, because I didn't know if you were going to ask me.
I was.
My guess is it's in Tampa, right?
Yes.
Jags -1.5. And that's assuming Trevor Lawrence is going to play.
That is too heavy on the Jags anywhere you look, but generally it's about a pick. You actually have books that have either team favored by a half point to a point. Okay. So it's about a pick. Yeah. Okay. Let me just throw this in there though about the Bucks. First of all, Trevor Lawrence in concussion protocol. The Jags defense has given up 88 points over the last 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
The Buccaneers, they're hot. They've won 3 in a row. And in those last 3 games, they've scored 21, 29, 34. They beat the Packers. They haven't played world beaters. Panthers, Falcons,
Mm-hmm.
Falcons, Packers. But Baker Mayfield is on fire right now. I think the Buccaneers win this game.
Okay. Well, I mean, once again, I think that does ultimately benefit the Bills. I think if you're a Bills fan, you're just hoping that all of these teams lose, and you hope that the Colts lose. You hope that the Texans lose. Well, we just kind of talked about that whole debacle, but if they all lose, that's a good thing for the Bills.
What do you think the line is for Cowboys at Dolphins?
Ooh, this is a tricky one. I would say Cowboys at Dolphins. The Dolphins are favored by 3.5.
It is Miami -1.5.
Okay. I think Miami's going to kill the Cowboys.
Wow. I do not. You are
Really?
you are ride or die with the Dolphins this year.
I know I am. You know how I guarantee, how I could guarantee if everybody wants to Venmo me like $5, I guarantee the Dolphins lose if I bet them to win. Guarantee it.
Okay.
So if you want me to kind of control my destiny here, just send me money and I'll bet it on the Dolphins to win, and then they'll lose. And then that obviously helps the Bills.
Okay, so here's why I'm not as confident. I think Miami can definitely beat Dallas. I mean, this is a week-to-week league, right, Matt? We know that.
Sure.
I mean, Dallas, the Bills lose to the Eagles. Dallas crushes the Eagles, pretty much, a couple scores. And then the Bills crush Dallas. But there's a lot of things that go into this. Dallas had played 3 straight home games. Then they go on the road to a colder climate, even though it was not that bad.
Yeah.
Matt, they got embarrassed in Buffalo. They got embarrassed. They now still control their own destiny as far as the division because Philly lost. And they're going to Miami hot, mad about it. They got embarrassed. They'll have a better week of practice. And the biggest thing for me, though, is just a bad matchup for Dallas against the Bills. The Bills can run the ball physically. We've seen that. Miami's a good run team, but it's finesse. It's not physical. Yeah. They're going to throw the ball. Dallas is fast. They play dime defense. I think Dallas matches up really well with Miami.
Well, I think Dallas matches up better against Miami than they did against Buffalo.
Yes.
But they also lost by 21 points, and it should have been 27 points or 28 points to Buffalo. So it's not like
they also beat the Eagles, who beat the Dolphins.
Sure, and they beat the Bills. I think the Eagles also aren't that good. And I think that that's a bad loss. I think you go back and you look at the losses that the Bills have had this season and the ones that are going to make you pull your hair out, depending on what happens. The Broncos is number 1, number 2, and number 3. But after that, it's probably the Patriots. Like they had a lead against the Eagles late in the game and again in overtime and blew it twice. So
No,
I think they were awesome against the Eagles in the first half with 10 penalties. They had a couple missed kicks. They had a 59-yarder and a monsoon that was made against it. Just like everything went wrong that could have. I don't think the Eagles are very good. So I don't think the Cowboys beating the Eagles handedly is really that impressive.
I'm realizing here then, and there's no one right way. You could be right. I could be right. We could both be wrong, whatever. But talking about the talking about the Steelers Bengals game, then talking about this game, you just care who you think is better. I don't. I think teams are better, but lose sometimes because of situations and circumstances. I think the Dallas Cowboys in this situation and circumstance are going to play a lot better of a football game.
Sure, but they've already clinched a playoff spot. So for them, I think the motivation
They're tied
is
for a division. They could lose the division still.
Yeah, but Miami could lose the division still.
Correct,
they're playing for just as much, and they haven't clinched a playoff spot yet.
And they've also beaten one team with a winning record, even though Dallas really hasn't done anything like that either.
Well, no, at the time they did not beat a team with a winning record. The Broncos were sub 500. So the only team with a above 500 record that they have actually beaten is the Broncos. And when they played the Broncos, they scored 70 on them.
How about this? The only team that either of these teams has beaten with a current winning record is Dallas over Philly. That's it. All of the wins that Miami and Dallas have, look it up. If you take every single win they have 20 wins between them. 20.
Yeah.
One. The team has a current winning record, the Eagles.
Their schedule is such a cupcake. It's crazy how different the schedules are.
It'll be interesting. All right. Do the Patriots have any chance at the Broncos?
I don't think
this
the Broncos
is Christmas Eve at 8:15, by the way.
I don't think the Broncos are very...
Santa still is going to I'll probably be visiting Western New York by then and then have to head to Denver after this.
I don't think the Broncos are very good, but I don't think the Patriots are very good either. The Patriots defense could give them some problems, but I don't think they will. I think the Broncos win the game. My guess is the Broncos are like 5.5 point favorites.
6.5. Good call. I do think the Patriots have a chance, but they have to have a lot of things go right because they can play good defense. They just struggle so mightily on offense. I don't know, even with playing good defense, if they can score enough. So I'll take the Broncos. The Patriots can hang just like they did with the Chiefs for a while. They probably won't be able to beat them. And speaking of the Chiefs, they are at home to the Raiders. Can't expect the Raiders to beat them, but the Raiders scored 63 last week against a bad Chargers team. And they do usually give the Chiefs a bit of a game.
Yeah, and the Chiefs are also just not as dominant as they once were. It feels like they just keep making mistake over mistake. You know, it's weird. I haven't seen any pushback for the pass that hit Kadarius Toney's hands, and that was an interception. I think maybe the ref should have told them before the play that can't happen. So,
I love
it. The worst part about all of this is the Chiefs are going to stumble their way into the 1 seed again, and they're going to get a bye, and every playoff game is going to be at Arrowhead.
Maybe that would mean that maybe Baltimore loses at San Fran. You think that's the case?
Which I do. I think San Francisco is the best team in the league right now.
Okay, I want to look ahead real quick because you're you're a big Miami Dolphins fan and you got the pom-poms out. I kid, of course, but next week it's Baltimore, Miami. Who are you liking that one right now?
Baltimore for sure. Because I think that the Dolphins are going to split their next 2 games, but I think they beat the Cowboys and then lose to the Ravens.
And that would still put the division in play for the Bills if the Bills win 2 games.
Exactly. Because I also think for the Ravens, they're still then trying to fight for the 1 seed, as would Miami at that case. You know, if Miami wins this game, they will still absolutely be in it for the 1 overall seed in the AFC. But I just think that defense for Baltimore is really, really good.
I just want to see one thing here. Let me look at the standings. By the way, right now, in case anybody's wondering, the Bills still on the outside looking in, obviously, they're the 9th seed, but they're tied with 6, 7, and 8, but their conference record, obviously. If Miami loses this week and the Bills win, the Bills would get to 9 wins. Miami would still have 10. Okay, then the Bills still have to win. Miami, yeah, okay. I was just wondering, Miami can clinch the division before they play the Bills, even in that
Yeah.
scenario, but the Bills
Yeah, if they
can't.
win.
They can't clinch
Yeah.
the division at all until they play Miami, if that was the case.
No, the Dolphins can clinch, right, with 2 wins or with
Yeah,
a win and a Bills loss?
correct, correct. Their
Yeah.
magic number is 2, right? It's gotta be no, it's got 3. Their magic number is 3, I believe. Magic number is, by the way, the combination of how many wins you get or how many losses the Bills get. You total that
Mhm.
up. I think their magic number is 3. They gotta have a combination of 3, either their wins or Bills' losses.
Yeah, essentially. I think that if I were a betting person, which me guessing the lines here is probably indicative of me being a betting person, I do really think that the Week 18 game is going to come down to the division for the Bills and the Dolphins, and I also think that there's a realistic chance that it's a for the Bills, it's a win the division or do not make the playoffs at all.
Okay, so real quick, and we'll wrap it up. You wanna guess, first of all, what's the Chiefs Raiders line?
Chiefs Raiders in Kansas City,
Yep,
7.5.
10.
Wow. Okay,
Pretty
giving
big.
them a little bit.
Ravens at 49ers Monday night, Christmas night. What do you think the line is there?
What a great game that is. My guess is it's like 49ers 2.5.
Ooh, it's up to 5.5, actually.
Really? And you
Yeah.
know what's crazy? That to me is begging people to take Baltimore, and I would still take San Francisco.
Okay.
I think San Francisco is really, really good.
I mean, we have a whole week before we actually can make this prediction again. But as you sit here right now, would you predict the Bills Dolphins game is the Sunday night flex game of Week 18?
Probably, but yeah, probably. I almost think it's kind of like the Lions Packers last year, right?
Yes, but that was the Lions could not do anything once Minnesota won earlier in the day.
That's what I
They were knocked
mean.
out.
Yeah, they were knocked out. I don't think there would be well, it all depends on if the Bills win their next 2 games, right? That's risk. It's not risky because the game will still matter if Miami loses a game, but if Miami wins out and the Bills win out and for some reason they are in at 10 wins, that game could mean nothing.
Right. And actually, you know what else could happen? There's a lot of scenarios this could happen in, or a few, I believe.
Mhm.
They could play each other week 18 and week 19.
Yeah. Would you right now sign up for the Bills getting into the playoffs as the 7th seed?
Yes. Because once they're in, they're in. That's fine. Just
I
get in.
agree.
They're on the
I
outside
agree.
looking in right now. Why not? Just get in. And then you play at the number 2, which could be Kansas City. Could be Miami.
Oh,
Could be
okay.
Baltimore.
I don't think there's any team in the AFC that they can't beat.
Correct. So just get in.
And
I'll sign up. Get them in the playoffs.
just
7
get in.
seed, fine. What's the
Yeah.
difference? What's the difference? It's 7-6-5 right now. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, 4 would be great because that's a home game. That's division winner. But
Mhm.
all right, we've taken enough of everybody's time here as they get out and holiday shop. You know what? Good chance. That's what I'm hoping people did that. Like they listened to us while they were holiday shopping, got in a good mood about the game, spend some more money out there, help out their community to, spend some money and make somebody's Christmas pretty bright. So
No, realistically, they're listening to us in the car, stuck at a red light on Niagara Falls Boulevard in tons of holiday traffic, wondering why there's so many people out at right now, and they're yelling. They're like, "What are you doing? Move! Get
because
over!"
they're like
So that's
us, they're
probably
they're procrastinators when it comes to Christmas shopping. That's why.
yeah. I didn't a lot of online shopping this year. Ellie is only
Good.
9 months old, so she doesn't. I mean, you give her a paper bag, and she'd be just as
Yes.
thrilled as a toy that costs hundreds of dollars. So that's our mindset this year.
Thanks for listening. Mike Robier is our producer. Have a great, great Christmas, everyone. We'll talk to you after the Bills Chargers game on Saturday night in LA. For Matt Bove, I'm Sal Capaccio. Keep with us, and it's always game day in Buffalo, both here on audio and on the Sal Sports YouTube channel.